The morning light poured in through the window, casting a soft glow on the room, but it did nothing to ease the heavy weight that sat in my chest. I felt like I was walking in a fog, unable to fully grasp the reality of the day. My husband, Nathan, the man I had loved with all my heart, was gone. A car accident had taken him from me so suddenly, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a life I hadn't prepared to lose. I had spent the entire morning in a daze, moving through the motions of getting ready for the funeral. Every step I took felt robotic, getting dressed in the black dress I'd always hated, combing my hair, applying makeup that barely covered the tears I'd shed. Nothing about this felt real. I couldn't understand how this was happening, how the man who had promised to grow old with me, to be my partner in every sense, was now just a memory. When we arrived at the chapel, the scene was more overwhelming than I had imagined. Friends and family were already gathered, their faces a mixture of sorrow and disbelief. I tried to focus on the service, on the words of comfort from the minister, but nothing could take away the sharp ache in my chest. I kept my eyes fixed on the casket, knowing that Nathan's body lay there, but unable to make sense of the emptiness he had left behind. The sound of the minister's voice faded as I lost myself in my own thoughts. I thought about Nathan's laugh, the way his eyes would crinkle at the corners when he smiled. I thought about our late-night talks, the shared dreams we'd built for the future, and how, in a heartbeat, it had all been taken away from me. Could feel the tears threatening to fall again, but I held them back. I was determined to be strong, to get through this day. But the grief was a constant companion, lurking in the background, always ready to take me by surprise. As the service drew to a close, I found myself standing next to Nathan's casket, unable to look away. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into an abyss. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in years. That's when I noticed him. Liam, Nathan's older brother. He had been standing at the back, his face drawn with the same grief that consumed me. But there was something different about him today. He wasn't just a brother mourning the loss of his sibling. There was a strange intensity in his gaze that unsettled me. Liam had always been a part of our lives, a constant presence. He had been there through the ups and downs, offering his help, support, and laughter when needed. He had always been a quiet presence, but he had been there when Nathan wasn't. And now, it seemed like he was stepping forward in a way that felt almost too intimate. As the last guests began to file out, Liam approached me slowly. His eyes met mine, and for a moment we just stood there, neither of us knowing what to say. The air between us felt thick, charged with an unspoken understanding. His face was drawn, but there was something else there, a vulnerability that made my heart skip. "I'm so sorry, Olivia," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. "I know this is impossible to bear." I nodded, my throat tight. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this without him. I don't know how I'm supposed to keep going. Liam stepped closer, his presence oddly comforting despite the heaviness of the moment. He put a hand on my shoulder, and I felt the warmth of his touch seep into my skin. But then, as if the moment had shifted in a way I couldn't understand, he said something that would change everything. "Olivia, I know this is the last thing you probably want to hear right now, but I've thought about this for a long time. I can't imagine my life without you in it. You've been a part of my life for so long, and I've come to realize that He hesitated, his voice faltering for a second. "I love you, Olivia, and I need to ask you something. Would you marry me?" The words hung in the air like a slap, cold and unyielding. I felt the world around me tilt on its axis. Liam's proposal was the last thing I had expected, especially today of all days. My heart screamed in confusion, but my voice barely found its way through the grief. "You're Nathan's brother," I managed to choke out, my mind racing. How could this be happening? What kind of cruel joke was this? I know, and I'm sorry, but I don't know what else to say. I can't lose you too, Olivia. His voice was raw, desperate even. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for mine. I don't expect you to say yes, but I need you to know that I love you. The shock of his words slammed into me like a wave, knocking the breath from my chest. I pulled my hand away from his, instinctively stepping back. My mind was in turmoil, my heart still aching from Nathan's death. And now I was being asked to consider a future with his brother? I felt as if I was drowning in the complexity of it all. Grief, confusion, betrayal, everything mixed together into a storm I couldn't escape. My eyes welled with tears again, but I could not find the words to say. How could Liam ask this of me now, just hours after burying Nathan? Did he really think I could move on so easily? The room seemed to close in around me as I struggled to understand what was happening. I need time, I whispered, turning away from him. I need time to think, and as I walked away, my heart was torn, my thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. Was this a second chance at love? Or had I just been offered a betrayal dressed in the guise of kindness? The days that followed Nathan's funeral felt like a blur. I moved through them in a haze, each moment feeling heavy, like I was walking underwater. The pain of losing Nathan consumed me entirely. And yet, there was something else there, something I couldn't quite shake off. Liam's proposal lingered in my mind, haunting me like a dark shadow that I couldn't escape. His words repeated themselves in my thoughts, echoing through the emptiness that Nathan had left behind. I love you, Olivia. Would you marry me? Liam's voice seemed to be in the room with me, even when I was alone. It was as if I could still feel the intensity of his eyes on me, waiting for a response, for an answer I didn't know how to give. I couldn't make sense of it. My mind was a whirlpool of confusion. Nathan's death had shattered me, leaving a hole that no one could fill. Yet Liam, his brother, of all people, had proposed to me just hours after burying Nathan. How was I supposed to react? Liam had been part of my life for as long as I could remember. He wasn't just Nathan's brother. He was a constant in our marriage, always there when Nathan couldn't be. But I never saw him in that way. He was family, a brother I trusted and cared for. But love? No, I never considered it. How could I? My heart belonged to Nathan, and Nathan alone. It always had. But now, with Nathan gone, Liam was here, offering me something more. It wasn't just a proposal. It was an invitation to rewrite the story of my life. A part of me felt guilty just thinking about it. How could I even consider loving someone else? Especially Nathan's brother. Wasn't that a betrayal of the love Nathan and I had shared? Wasn't it dishonoring his memory? Liam had been so kind during the years I had spent with Nathan. He was the one who checked on me when Nathan was away for work. The one who made sure I was okay when life felt overwhelming. He had always been there in ways that Nathan couldn't be. At least, not in the same way. But there was no denying that this situation felt wrong. He had just lost his brother, and now he was asking me to take Nathan's place, in a sense. Could I ever love him the way I had loved Nathan? Was it fair to even try? I spent hours alone in our home, walking through the rooms where Nathan and I had shared our lives. Every corner held a memory. The couch where we spent late nights talking, the kitchen where we'd cooked dinner together, the bedroom where we dreamed of our future. Nathan was everywhere, in every room, And yet, now he was gone. It felt like I was suffocating under the weight of his absence. That evening, Liam came over again. He always gave me space, but I knew he couldn't stay away forever. He had been patient, kind, and understanding in a way I didn't deserve. He didn't push me, didn't ask for anything more than my company, but I could see the desperation in his eyes. He was waiting for something from me, an answer, a response, something that would tell him where we stood, even if I didn't know myself. "I know this is hard, Olivia," Liam said softly, his voice almost breaking. "I never wanted to complicate things, but I can't hide how I feel anymore. I'm not asking you to forget Nathan. I would never want that. I can't imagine my life without you. I'm here for you. I always will be." His words were genuine, filled with emotion, but they only made everything worse. I felt the pull of his affection, the warmth of his care, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in my gut. How could I even entertain the idea of loving him when my heart was still so tied to Nathan? Could I truly let go of the love I had shared with my husband, the man who had been my everything, to pursue something new, something with his brother? The more I thought about it, the more the weight of my decision pressed down on me. Liam wasn't just asking me to love him. He was asking me to rewrite everything, to tear down the life I had built with Nathan and replace it with something that felt like a betrayal. How could I look Nathan's memory in the eye and justify that? But then, a small voice inside me whispered, "What if this is what Nathan would have wanted?" I remembered the letter he had left behind, his final words to me. He had known, hadn't he? He had known that Liam loved me, and he had given me permission to consider him. Nathan had wanted me to be happy, to move forward, even if he couldn't be there with me. It was a cruel twist of fate. How could Nathan's death be the catalyst for something new, something so complicated? How could I look Liam in the eye and tell him that I wasn't ready, that I wasn't willing to even try? And yet, every time I saw Liam, my heart ached. It wasn't love yet, but it could be. The question was, could I let it grow? Or would I forever be haunted by the ghost of Nathan, unable to move on, to find peace? The choice before me felt impossible. My love for Nathan was real, but so was the connection I had with Liam. But how could I choose between the man I had loved for years and the man who had stood by me, offering a future that seemed impossible to accept? As I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, I realized I couldn't keep running from this decision. I had to face it. I had to decide whether to let go of the past and embrace what might come next, or to remain tethered to a memory, trapped in the life I once knew. But no matter what I chose, one thing was clear. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. The letter had arrived without warning. It was late in the evening, after the funeral had ended, and the house had grown quiet once more. I had been sitting on the couch, trying to process the events of the day, when the sound of the doorbell startled me. The delivery person, a young man with a sympathetic expression, handed me a simple envelope. There was no return address, no name, just my name written in familiar handwriting. As I held the envelope, something inside me twisted. It was Nathan's handwriting. My hands trembled as I carefully tore open the envelope, almost afraid to see what would be inside. The smell of paper, faintly tinged with a scent that reminded me of him, filled my senses. It was as if Nathan was still with me, somehow able to reach through the veil of death and leave a final message for me. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this, but there was no turning back. I unfolded the letter, my heart pounding in my chest, as I read the first few words. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer with you. I wish I could have been there to tell you this in person, but life doesn't always give us what we want." I paused, the weight of his words sinking in. Tears welled up in my eyes as I imagined Nathan sitting down to write this letter, knowing that his time was running out. It was something we never talked about, the possibility of him not being there for me, of us being separated too soon. But now, as I read his words, I realized he had thought about it, prepared for it in a way that only Nathan could. Even in his final moments, he had been thinking of me. I read on, the words now more urgent, more personal. "I know this will come as a shock, but I need you to hear something important. I know you've always felt a special bond with Liam. He has been more than just a brother to me. He's been a friend, a confidant, and someone I trust with my life. I also know he's always cared for you, more than a brother should, and I'm asking you, Olivia, to consider him. Not just as my brother, but as the man who will love you after I'm gone." The room felt colder. My breath caught in my throat as I struggled to process what Nathan was saying. He knew. Nathan had known all along that Liam had feelings for me. He had known that Liam's love for me went deeper than brotherly affection, but he hadn't been threatened by it. Instead, he had embraced it, trusting Liam to be there for me when he couldn't. But now, he was asking me to consider Liam, to open my heart to him, in the same way I had once opened it to Nathan. Nathan's next words made my heart ache with the knowledge of his love for me. "I don't want you to feel obligated, but I want you to live a life full of love and happiness. Please don't let my death be the end of everything. If Liam can offer you that, then I ask you to open your heart to him." The words hit me like a wave crashing against rocks. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Nathan was giving me permission, asking me to move on, to find love again. But could I? Could I really accept Liam as my partner when he had always been? Nathan's brother, someone I had trusted and loved in a different way? How could I reconcile the love I had for Nathan with the possibility of a future with Liam? I stared at the letter, the words blurring as the tears came again. The love I had shared with Nathan was real, and it felt impossible to imagine a future without him. But Nathan had known this day would come. He had known that I would be left alone, and he had made sure I understood that I didn't have to face that loneliness forever. He had trusted Liam with me, trusted him to step into his shoes, to be the one who would hold me up when the world felt too heavy to bear. For a long time I just sat there, holding the letter, trying to comprehend what Nathan was asking of me. I felt guilty, torn between the man I had loved and the man who now stood in front of me, offering me his love in a way that felt both comforting and strange. Could I ever love Liam the way I had loved Nathan? Could I allow myself to move forward when every part of me screamed that Nathan was irreplaceable? The letter had left me with more questions than answers. But as I sat there, the silence of the house pressing in on me, I realized one thing. Nathan had given me a gift, even in death. He had given me the freedom to choose, to decide what my future would look like and who I would share it with. But the path ahead was not going to be easy. I had to decide if I could open my heart again, if I could allow myself to love someone else after losing Nathan. And more than that, I had to confront the deep fear that had been lodged in my chest ever since Nathan's passing. The fear of moving on, of letting go, of forgetting. But Nathan's letter had given me something more than permission. It had given me hope. The weeks following Nathan's funeral felt like I was living in a dream, but one that I couldn't wake up from. Every corner of the house held memories of him. Our time together, the laughter we shared, and the quiet moments that had once felt like eternity. The house, once filled with life, now felt empty. hollow. And yet, the strangest part of it all was how I felt both trapped in the past and pulled toward an uncertain future. Liam had been patient. He didn't push me, didn't demand anything from me. But I could feel the weight of his gaze every time I looked at him. It was as if he was waiting for something that I wasn't sure I could give. He had been my rock in the days following Nathan's death, the one who'd helped me with the arrangements, the one who'd stayed by my side even when the rest of the world seemed to fall away. And yet, each time I looked at him, the same question haunted me. Could I ever see him as more than Nathan's brother? Could I open my heart to him when my love for Nathan was still so strong? Liam had always been a part of my life, but never in this way. He had always been there when Nathan was away or busy, filling the gaps and being a friend, a confidant. But now, that same man was standing before me, offering me his love. And while I didn't want to hurt him, while I didn't want to let him down, I was terrified of the choice I knew I would have to make. I spent countless nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing in on me. Nathan's absence was suffocating. But even as I mourned him, I felt this pull, this confusing attraction to Liam. There were moments when he would smile at me, when he would do something small and kind, and I would feel my heart flutter. Just a little. It was an unspoken connection, one that had always been there beneath the surface. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same as what I had with Nathan. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the room grew darker, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table with Liam. We had been talking, but I couldn't even remember what about. The words didn't seem to matter. What mattered was the tension in the air, the unsaid things hanging between us. He had been quiet for a while, his eyes focused on the cup in his hands, as if he were trying to find the right moment to speak. "You've been distant lately," Liam said softly, breaking the silence. "I understand you need time, but I need to know where I stand with you, Olivia. I can't keep waiting for you to make up your mind." His words cut through me like a knife. It wasn't an accusation, but there was an undeniable sadness in his voice. He was right. I had been distant. I had been avoiding him, avoiding the inevitable conversation that had to happen. But how could I explain what I was feeling? How could I put into words the whirlwind of emotions that had been tearing me apart? "I don't know what to say, Liam," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I don't know how to make sense of any of this. Nathan is gone, and it feels like I'm living in two worlds, one where he's still here and one where he isn't. And then there's you. I don't know if I can love you the way you want me to. I don't know if I can love anyone the way I loved Nathan." Liam reached across the table, his hand gently touching mine. The warmth of his touch felt both comforting and foreign at the same time. "Olivia, I'm not asking you to forget Nathan. I'm not asking you to stop loving him. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. If you can't love me the way I love you, I'll accept that. But I can't keep pretending that I don't care about you." His words hit me harder than I expected. They were simple, but they carried so much weight. Liam wasn't just offering me a chance at love. He was offering me stability, a future. He was asking me to take a leap of faith, to trust him, and to allow myself to heal. But could I? Could I let go of Nathan, even if just a little? Could I allow myself to be happy again, to build a life with someone else? The thought terrified me, but deep down, I knew I couldn't stay stuck in the past forever. I had to move forward, even if it meant facing the fear of forgetting. The silence stretched between us, both of us waiting for the other to speak. but I couldn't bring myself to answer just yet. I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure I ever would be. "I need time, Liam," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need time to figure this out. I need time to grieve and to understand what it is that I'm feeling." Liam nodded, his expression softening with understanding. "Take all the time you need, Olivia. I'm here for you. Always." As he stood up to leave, I felt a pang of guilt twist in my chest. He was being so patient, so kind. And yet I couldn't give him the answers he wanted. I couldn't promise him anything when my heart was still so full of questions. But I knew, deep down, that the time for making decisions was coming. And I couldn't keep running from it forever. The path ahead was unclear, and the decision was mine to make. But in that moment, as I watched Liam leave, I realized that no matter what I chose, it would change everything, and that terrified me. The days passed slowly after that conversation with Liam. Every moment felt like it was stretched out, like I was living in some sort of suspended animation. I had always thought that grief would be the hardest thing to endure, but now I realized that the hardest part wasn't the mourning. It was the waiting. Waiting for the pain to lessen, waiting for clarity to come, waiting for some sign that would tell me what I should do next. I found myself lost in thought more often than not, my mind a constant whirlpool of conflicting emotions. Nathan was gone, and I still couldn't believe it. The hole he had left in my life was so vast that it felt like nothing could fill it. But Liam had been here, steady and constant, offering me a chance at a future I hadn't expected. He wasn't Nathan, he couldn't be. And yet, there was something in his presence that felt both comforting and unfamiliar, like a new chapter in a book I wasn't sure I was ready to start. I spent a lot of time thinking about Nathan's letter. He had known that this day would come, hadn't he? He had known that I would be left alone, and that I would have to find a way to keep going. His words had been kind, giving me permission to move forward, to consider loving again. But how could I do that? How could I reconcile the love I had for Nathan with the possibility of loving someone else, especially his brother? The guilt I felt was overwhelming. In a way, it felt like I was betraying Nathan by even entertaining the idea of a future with Liam. But Nathan had known. He had trusted Liam, trusted him with my heart. He had loved me enough to want me to be happy, even after he was gone. One evening, after another long day of indecision, I found myself walking by the lake near our home. The cool evening air felt like a balm to my soul, offering a brief reprieve from the storm of emotions inside me. I walked slowly, letting my thoughts wander, trying to clear my head. The lake's surface was calm, the water reflecting the fading colors of the sunset. As I walked, I thought about all the memories I had with Nathan, our late-night talks, the dreams we shared, the future we had planned. It seemed so unfair that it had all been taken away so suddenly. But then I thought about Liam. He had been there for me in his own way, every step of the way since Nathan's death. His love was different from Nathan's, but it was real, and while it wasn't the same, it could still be something worth exploring. I realized then that the answer wasn't about forgetting Nathan. It wasn't about replacing him or erasing the past. It was about finding a way to live, to move forward, while still holding on to the love that had shaped my life. I didn't have to let go of Nathan to find happiness again. I didn't have to stop loving him to love Liam. It was at that moment that I knew what I had to do. The choice had never been easy, and it wasn't going to be simple. But I had to choose to live. I had to choose to embrace the future, even if it meant facing my fears and accepting that things had changed. Life didn't stop just because we wanted it to, and neither could I. The next day, I called Liam. My hands were shaking as I dialed his number, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea what his reaction would be, but I knew that I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't keep living in the limbo of uncertainty. It was time to make a decision. "Liam," I said when he answered, my voice trembling. "I've thought about it. I've thought about everything. And I think I'm ready to move forward." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought he hadn't heard me. But then he spoke, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "Olivia, are you sure? You don't have to rush into anything. I can wait." "No," I interrupted gently. "I don't want you to wait. I don't want you to feel like you have to. I want to try, Liam. I want to see where this goes. I don't know what the future holds, but I want to try with you." The relief in his voice was palpable. "You don't know how much that means to me, Olivia. I promise I'll take this slow. We'll go at your pace, whatever you need. I'm just so grateful that you're willing to take this step with me." I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know if what I was doing was right, but I knew that I had made the right choice for me. I had chosen to live, to love again, and to honor Nathan's memory by embracing the future, not just the past. As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The kind of peace that only comes when you make a difficult choice and finally stop running from it. There would be challenges ahead, of course, but for the first time in weeks I felt a glimmer of hope. It was time to move forward, and with Liam by my side, I knew that I wasn't alone in that journey. Together we would find a way to heal. Together we would face whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, we could build a new future. One that honored the past while embracing the possibilities of tomorrow. The days following my decision felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, but also as though I were stepping into uncharted territory. The choice I had made was neither easy nor simple, but in my heart, I knew it was the right one. I had decided to open my heart again, to embrace the possibility of love with Liam. And though I didn't expect everything to fall into place immediately, I could sense the shift. For the first time since Nathan's death, I felt like I was moving forward, even if it was one small step at a time. Liam had been incredibly patient, never pushing me for more than I was ready to give. He respected my need for time, but his presence had become a steady comfort in my life. Slowly, we began to rebuild the bond we had once shared as friends, only now it had a different undertone, a quieter, more intimate understanding between us. The atmosphere was gentle, tentative, but filled with possibility. We didn't rush into anything, instead letting things evolve naturally, like two people learning to navigate the delicate balance of grief and hope. One of the first things Liam and I did together after I made my decision was take a walk by the lake, just as we had in the past when we were still just friends. The sky was painted in soft hues of pink and orange, and the evening air was cool, but comforting. As we walked, we talked, really talked, about everything and nothing at all. We shared memories of Nathan, stories that only the two of us knew, and laughter that felt foreign, but good. It wasn't the same as before, but it wasn't bad either. It was a new chapter, one that still honored the past, but allowed us to create something fresh, something that was our own. Do you ever think about the life we would have had if Nathan hadn't been taken so soon? I asked as we walked along the water's edge. Liam was silent for a moment before answering. every day," he said softly. "But I try not to get lost in that thought. I can't change what happened. All I can do is try to make the most of what's left, and what's left is you, Olivia." His words hit me harder than I expected. I had spent so much time trying to hold on to the life I had shared with Nathan, the life that had been ripped away so abruptly. But Liam was right. There was no turning back. I couldn't keep grieving for a future that would never come. I had to accept the reality of the present and, in doing so, open myself to the possibilities of what lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, Liam and I found ourselves growing closer. There were moments when the connection between us felt natural, even easy, like we had always been on this path, waiting for the right time to begin. Other times, the weight of the past would resurface, and I would feel the ache of missing Nathan, of wondering if I was dishonoring his memory by moving on. But Liam was patient, always understanding when I needed space, and never pushing me to move faster than I was ready for. There were also moments when I felt the need to retreat, to hide from the new reality I was stepping into. I would spend hours alone in the house, just sitting with my thoughts, trying to make sense of everything that had changed. It was during these moments that I realized how much I still loved Nathan. But I also realized that I didn't have to stop loving him to open myself to love again. My heart could hold both memories, both loves, without one diminishing the other. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Liam, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he turned to me with a gentle smile. "I know this isn't easy," he said. "I know you're still figuring things out, but I'm not going anywhere, and I'll be here for however long it takes." Tears welled up in my eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of gratitude. I had spent so much time afraid of moving on, afraid of letting go of Nathan. But here was Liam, offering me a future I hadn't known was possible. He wasn't trying to replace Nathan. He was simply offering me something new, something that could help heal the wounds of the past. "I'm ready, Liam," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm ready to try. Not because I want to forget Nathan, but because I know that life is still worth living, and I want to live it with you." Liam reached out and took my hand, his grip warm and steady. "Then let's take this one day at a time, together." As we sat there, our hands intertwined, I realized that moving forward didn't mean leaving the past behind. It meant embracing both, the love I had for Nathan, the pain of losing him, and the hope that Liam and I could build something beautiful in the wake of that loss. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the only path that made sense. The future was still uncertain. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt and sorrow. But I wasn't afraid anymore. With Liam by my side, I knew that I could face whatever came next. Together we would navigate the twists and turns, building a life that was rooted in love, loss, and the courage to start anew. And as the sun finally set, casting a warm glow over the horizon, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was living, and that, I realized, was all I could ask for.